Hi students, in this video I'm going to talk about the transformation and challenges of the Roman Empire in the period from about 150 until about 300. So the period that followed Octavian's takeover of the Roman Empire was a period of peace and stability that's called the Pax Romana, which means, as a Latin term, it means Roman peace. It refers to this period of stability that was provided by the Roman Empire throughout the Mediterranean and European world where the empire existed. This period comes to an end around 150, 180, when the Roman Empire has to face a number of great challenges. The first is an outbreak of the disease of smallpox, a disease that the population of the empire had little exposure to, and therefore many people die. We don't really know the exact numbers, but if it's anything like the numbers we associate with the introduction of smallpox among Native American populations 1,500 years later, this would have been really a significant event. We estimate maybe 10–15% of the population die. That's pretty significant, and it compounds these other crises that the Roman Empire is facing. The population decline means that the caliber of the military and the size of the military is also going to decline. It means that the government's going to experience a decline in revenue as less goods are being produced in the empire. So the empire is weak. And not only is it weak in these ways, it's also politically weak. It's politically weak because you are seeing political instability, partly driven by these factors, partly driven, we think, by kind of an emerging culture of selfishness among the Roman populations. People are more interested in what they can get out of the Roman Empire than what they can contribute. And so we see a period of massive turnover of emperors, basically a new emperor almost every other year, and as a result of a military coup. So the army has kind of gone off the rails here. It's not as powerful as it was, but it's being used as a political weapon. At the same time as you have all these internal crises, you have renewed external invasions and pressure on the Roman Empire from Gothic groups to the north and to the east, and also from Persian forces, that's to the south and to the east. And so the Roman Empire is really struggling during the 3rd century crisis, and it's going to be saved from this crisis by the Emperor Diocletian. And Diocletian becomes emperor just like most of his predecessors during this period. He kills the previous emperor in a military coup, but after this he reveals a talent for organization and politics that is going to enable him to restore the empire. First of all, he's going to restore the empire economically. He was facing a situation with mass inflation, a situation where the currency was increasingly worthless. He tries printing more money, he tries setting prices. Neither of these routes work. What does work in the end is holding a census, one of the first censuses in the Roman Empire for about 100 years, and using the information from this census to better organize tax collection for government revenue, and also by permitting taxes to be paid either in coin or in kind. So that meant if you were a farmer, you could pay your taxes in grain. This is really important because it means that the money of the empire starts to acquire some value. Diocletian is also going to carry out some significant political reforms to the Roman Empire. The first of these is that he recognizes that the western half of the Roman Empire is increasingly weak and depopulated and difficult to defend, and he's going to move the headquarters of the Roman Empire to the east, to the city of Nicomedia in modern-day Greece on the edge of the Black Sea. And the reason for this is that the eastern half of the empire has a stronger population, stronger economy, stronger armies, and so this is going to be the core that Diocletian is going to rebuild the empire around. Not only this, he's also going to divide the government of the empire into 4. There are now going to be 4 emperors that are going to manage the empire, although he is going to remain the senior emperor. And this is also part of a scheme to change the perspective of the emperor. And the emperor is no longer presented to the citizens of the empire as the greatest general or the greatest citizen, but otherwise just like everyone else. Instead, the emperor is going to be presented to the empire as much more like a ruler and a god. And there are a couple of reasons for this. First, it's to delegitimize all these military coups. It's to make it much more difficult to have access to the emperor because there's new court ceremonial associated with gaining access to the emperor, and also to make it a much more serious thing to launch a military coup against an emperor. And to do this, Diocletian is going to strongly encourage or even mandate sacrifices being offered to the emperor across the empire. He doesn't think he's a god, but this is more a symbol of saying that you are supporting the emperor and you're not supporting the instability and military coups that have characterized the previous century of the history of the Roman Empire. This approach, this measure, is what's going to bring Diocletian into conflict with the emerging Christian community, who see a religious problem with offering sacrifices to the emperor.